education is not just the formal education which we get from structured knowledge from schools and all that, but even in the home. The very first information, the form of education that children get is from the parents, from the grandparents, from the aunts around. Okay, when the child is born, okay, that begins to train the child because the child is born into a new environment, society, and the child doesn't know how that society works. So when you teach your child how the society works, how the family works, it's education. Okay, and a child that is well groomed, well trained, okay, informally, ends up to be a well trained citizen. Okay, because you're being trained in your family setup to fit into the society. You get that? And it's same children who are not trained from home that become problems to society. I believe that we should have a structured way of teaching or educating our children informally from the home. For instance, things about respect, teach them those things. Have a system. At this age, this child should know how to greet. At this age, this child should know how to cook, for instance. Right? At this stage, this child should know how to do certain things. You should have those stages, okay, and then ensure that they get these skills, informally. Once you do that, you find that at the end of the day, the children are at a higher level of thinking than other children, even before they get into formal education. Education gives you wisdom, whether you like it or not. Okay, it gives you know-how, gives you skills, it gives you understanding of how things work and how to apply them. So it's very important that we know that education is paramount, even in our day today. Education also develops critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Right? Yeah. So if you're well educated, it's not just for you to memorize things and all that stuff. At the end of the day, employers want to see whether you are able to see a problem, identify that problem, understand what's causing the problem, and not just do that, but propose a solution. Education is the pathway to getting employment. That is the truth. All right. For instance, if there's an opening somewhere, let's say in the hospital, there's an opening for a pharmacist, right? If you don't have the basic pharmacy degree, you can't apply. That's the truth. And it's education that gives you that degree. Or say, for instance, you want to there's an opening in an airline, or you have a pilot, or a manager, or whatever it is. There's always this minimum qualification required, right? Of course, they have years of experience and all that stuff, and then the skills that they expect that you should have. If that is there, no matter how good you are, without that basic minimum qualification, you're not even shortlisted, right? So education is very important. We need to have it and the proper certifications. So what education does is that it gives you the capacity to explore, okay, to learn beyond what you have been taught, to understand, okay, and to apply things you have learned, and then the ultimate to be able to create new knowledge. Education also builds confidence, okay, and communication abilities. By the time you go through school, primary school, secondary school, you'd have been engaged in debating and talking with different categories of people and stuff like that. It actually prepares you for real life in the larger society. And then education also creates opportunities for leadership, okay, and influence everywhere you go. The Bible is clear because they forces that people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So every parent should ensure that the children get educated formally, all right? And even if they want to go into other disciplines, other kinds of work, vocation, they need to have that education. Education is needed, in every sphere of life that we are in. Okay? So in today's world, we must learn what the society demands of us educationally, get the certification that you need, get the skill, and even if you're going to move from that particular discipline somewhere else, know that the education you've had is not wasted. You always apply it in a different area of life. Many school dropouts have low self-esteem. First and foremost, they avoid their peers, they avoid their former classmates. They don't want to, and even when they see themselves, maybe years afterwards, when they've grown, there's that lack of self-confidence, low self-esteem. There's shame and embarrassment. I can talk about the feelings of failure. There's anger and frustration. If you have a child, it doesn't seem to be measuring up. Instead of comparing that child with another child who is doing well, okay, just know that child has his own destiny and purpose, and God created him for a purpose, all right? And he must achieve that purpose. So you need to support that child as much as you can, all right? Encourage that child. You're at home, and there's always fighting between the parents. Some children actually feel that they are the cause, that the reason why the parents are doing all that, and they have this self-blame, and it affects them. It affects their concentration, attention span, and the willingness to even be involved in anything. You get that because they're going home to a toxic environment. So that affects children. All right? Affects children. It's very, very important that parents know this. Because you see, like I said, the home is the very first school. Okay? And we must educate children in all these soft skills, of relationships. We shouldn't just be parents to our own children. All right, we should also look out for children who are in this situation and try to see how we can help. Right, so because these children are going to be the peers of your children, they can influence your children negatively. So don't just say, "Well, this doesn't do my business." All right, whenever you see a child like that, you need to find out and then get the teachers involved and all that stuff. Let's see how we can help the child. If there are things you can do to help that child along, please do that. Always do that. It's very, very important. Sometimes some of those children, you can invite them to your home, and help them see what a stable family is like. So they don't grow up thinking that that's how life is. Okay? And words of encouragement, tell them whenever you need help, just come and all that stuff like that. That will help. So, yes, dysfunctional family backgrounds can affect children academically. All right? Children from such homes often experience poor concentration, anxiety, lack of confidence, behavioral problems, and loss of academic interest. That's the truth. So that's a problem. So what do? We should encourage them. We should love them. We should pray for them, and then pay attention to them as well as help them in any way we can. A home that is stable is very important. Because the home is broken and nobody cares for the child is already fending for him or herself and other stuff, and he doesn't know who is going to pay the school fee and other stuff. It's just an extra excuse, to leave school. Unemployment among graduates, right? Okay, you are going to school. Where's your work? Where's your job? I'm going to go to school. I beg, things like that. Yeah. So that can also be a reason why students are not motivated to continue. Then harsh criticism from adults. You do not know anything. You cannot make it. Even your parents tell you that. Yeah, you cannot make it. You just, in fact, I wonder why I will making money on you. So and so and so. After a while, you just think, maybe it's really true. All right, let me do something else. If you educate a girl child, you also promote education of future generations. Okay, of the family. Because she pours out all she knows in a systematic way to the children, and those ones will learn and also do the same to their own children. So it's very important that we educate the girl child. A woman can build both a godly home and a meaningful career. So let's not restrict them and say your place is in the kitchen. That is not right. Okay? And the truth is that women who are educated, are very good at juggling this thing. I wonder how, if men were to do those things, I wonder if we could do it. Just yesterday, I was having a lecture with very students, and in the middle of the lecture, I was discussing something with some other person. The guy was saying, one lady was saying, please, boil rice, put rice on the fire now. I make sure, in the middle of the class, and I made as if I didn't hear. And this time I said, you see, you men are different from us, and you people can multitask. Even in this lecture, you're already organizing what's happening at home. You get that? And the man is going to come home and food is ready. You get that? So, we should actually praise them and give them the accolade for being able to handle those things. So they actually do more than we do. Okay, it's not true, and it's not right to say woman's place is only in the kitchen. A woman can build a godly home and also build a meaningful career. We should actually support the girl child, teach them well, train them properly, help them organize better, okay, and help them also know that they have a God-given function to build a home, okay, while they're building their career. God gives gifts, intelligence, and purpose to both male and female children. Remember, Genesis 1:27 or 17 says God made them male and female. Education can actually break that cycle of poverty. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that you must have an education to be successful. That's what I'm saying. But the truth is that the way the system of the world runs, okay, education gives you an edge. All right? And certain things you want to do or be, there's a pathway. Okay? And education is one of those that you can use to accomplish it. You get that? Okay. So, education can interrupt cycles of poverty, ignorance. Academics can take you somewhere. Or character you don't have, it can bring you down. You get that? And your value system and all that. So a person may be academically brilliant, yet dishonest, arrogant, irresponsible, or morally bankrupt. And that's what we're seeing in society today. Okay? And it's a problem. You get that? If you don't have integrity, you're not honest, you get to a position that better of your education, you cannot keep it. You'll not be there. You get that? Christian education must include integrity, compassion, humility, discipline, hard work. Okay? If you have all this and you're educated, you're rounded, you get that. First and foremost, you're competent as an employee or as an entrepreneur or as a worker, okay? And you're also able to relate well with people, your subordinates, your superiors. You get that. You're relating well with God, you're relating well with your people around you and other stuff. You're a better person. You're an ideal citizen. You get that. And you're really a full role model. We need that. It's not just education, but the soft skills to also have that. Okay? Don't define your future by your current struggles. Don't define your future by your current struggles. I know it's difficult because all you're saying is difficulty you're facing. All right, don't define your future by that. Because that many people, when they tell you that story, they don't tell you all the stories. They don't tell you everything that happened. We tend to highlight the successes. Only very few persons who write their autobiography and others to tell you what they actually went through. And even when they do that, they don't tell you the kind of struggles they had internally. So persons probably had many thoughts of giving up. You get that? And stuff like that. So don't define your future by your current struggles. Failure is not final. That's the truth. You only fail when you say, I'm not doing it again. That is when you are failed. But if you continue to try, even if you keep failing to try, you have not failed yet. All right? And the truth is that nobody truly is a failure as long as you're trying to do it. Okay? And then, of course, delay is not denial. Just using some of these terms that we use to keep it in mind for the students. Okay? And then your work is not determined by your grades alone. I can tell you, as a lecturer, that some students who struggled academically, now in practice, they are doing by far better. You get that? Than some who were high flyers. You get that? Because you see, they finished, they went into internship, and they began to practice. Now they are able to marry what the theory and the practice. Okay? And because of the other things that they have, the character advantages that they have, they are resilient, they are diligent, they are hardworking, they are purposeful, they are self-driven. They are doing better. You get that? And some of them won't come back again. They get higher degrees. Because now they realize that the reason why they were never doing well before was because that this education thing itself is one kind. You get that? So don't judge yourself right now, okay, by what's happening to you, okay? And that your work is not just it's not based on the grades you have, right? And the other things that make up the kind of person you can be. I want to say that building a legacy of education is not just about sending children to school. It is about creating an environment where learning, character, discipline, faith, hope can flourish. Parents must invest in education. We must invest in education. Teachers must teach with compassion. Unfortunately, people are teaching because it's just a job to them. All right. Actually, teaching is supposed to be a vocation. It's something that you really want to do. Okay, you have that passion to pass information, knowledge to the next generation. You're passionate about it, and will not stop until the students learn. Communities must support vulnerable children. In fact, in most developed climes, basic education is free. All right, every child should have is a fundamental human right. Basic education, but some places it's expensive. Good education is expensive, and it ought not to be like that. Okay, basic education is supposed to be free, and at that point, everybody has that basic education to be able to function in society at least at a level. Students must persevere with faith and determination. So let me say that we should build homes where education is valued, where children are encouraged, and where knowledge is guided by godly wisdom. So may we raise a generation that is educated, compassionate, responsible, and spiritually grounded.
Where the things you could not become, you want to project your pain to your children. Oh, that doctor I could not be. My children must be doctor, or this particular vocation or anything I could not do, So when you project your fears, your failures, or your pain to your children, it's not actually healthy, because you've been able to establish that God creates everyone. We're created for a particular purpose. So it takes one to first identify the purpose for which this child has been created. And that's why we also need to take time to understand the uniqueness of our children, their skills, their ability, their giftings. When you are being handed over a certificate, they will tell you there's a line that states in character and in learning. You see, so this is where education without character is not useful, and that's where you can't say because you are a girl child, you've been trained, therefore you can't submit to your husband at home. It shows that like you were able to establish, it's not education that caused it. That character was not there. There was a character flaws. If not, it doesn't rob you of what your responsibility is at home. So this is also a way to encourage women who are high flyers in their career. It's not a guarantee for you to dishonor or not being submissive to your own spouse, or not to be a homemaker. So there's also something called the season of life. Even in your career progression, you should be able to know, now that I have children, what kind of role can I take? Even though I'm a professional in this, but you look for what suits your family life at this stage. of their the children's development. Okay, now I understand the kids are still young, even though I am this profession. Okay, what can I give? What can I forfeit for now to care for my children? So your home is your major priority, despite whatever career you think you have. Because if we don't have a success like we've been able to establish, a stable home, it will impact into the society. So the role of a teacher can either make a child love a particular course, or you just destroy the child's interest for that course. So, and this is where we are appealing to teachers: love what you do, love your profession. It may not be high paying, but the passion and the zeal should not drop, because you are modeling a generation, you are leaving a legacy for the next generation to follow through. And when we talk about education, it's not about being financially free. That's the first thing that comes to people's mind. By the time I go to school, I will not be free financially. But it is the mental poverty that it takes you off that is very important. Where your mind is broadening, your heart is large. You've come to see the four walls. That's why they call it the four walls of university. You've met with the good, the bad, and the ugly. You now know how to take decisions. You now know how to relate with people. So there are a lot of things that education would do to you outside of financial gain. So let the aim not just be, so that by the time you start working in this particular place, you start earning money. No, what about let's focus on the character that will be built along the line.